Okay, I'm gonna wait for it to start just for a few seconds. Okay, so the first question is from Abhay Krishna. He says, I was wondering if you could speak on a little bit about a subject I recall you mentioning in a class a little while ago. He's paraphrasing what you said. The subject being the idea that we are actually in the Lila right now, as in the extension of Mahaprabhu's Lila in our Sadhaka Lila. I think naturally devotees can feel like we are in a completely different and separate reality than Krishna, which is true from one angle of vision. But from another angle of vision, there is nothing but Krishna. And even if we are very far from the center of reality, Golok, we are still connected. And also, we are literally touched by the direct descent of Mahaprabhu and his Lila here. The spiritual emotions that erupted from his heart and spread to anyone who came in contact have made their way to our own hearts and are working to melt our hearts so we can play our own part in his Lila. And each sadhaka's journey from initial faith to prem is a miracle and something that could be written about to inspire the world. Not because we are special, but because anything Krishna touches becomes special. It might not seem that way in the beginning when we still have so many attachments, but if we are sincere on the path and accepting of the grace of Guru, are we not on the first chapters of our entry into the still unfolding chapters of Mahaprabhu's Lila here on earth? So I was just wondering if you could expand and correct where necessary this line of thinking, as I do find it comforting and exciting to think in this way. But I wonder if there is some danger too, as you see people who take this too far and start looking for rasa dance in the material world or something like that. Thank you so much for your guidance.
Well, I think that it's quite accurate in a sense to look at the continued unfolding of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's dispensation, even as it contracts at times and expands and contracts and expands. What I mean by that, for example, at the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, when he was in the world, it was obviously expanding, and it contracted to some extent in terms of its being circulated further or widely after his disappearance, although during that period after his disappearance, which is often thought of as a time when the devotees were immersed in separation, understandably, but it did give rise to many books in the later part of the 16th century that are core texts of our Sampradaya. That's an aside there. But going forward, then, when you come to the later part of the 18th century, certainly the 19th century, the dispensation, and to bring full to our present, more to the time of Bhakti Vinod, the 20th century, and somewhat the 19th century, the later part there, it was contracting, is my point. So it expands, it contracts, it expands, it contracts. Prabhupada, my Guru Maharaj, was part of a huge expansion initiated, if you will, by put in motion by Bhakti Vinod Thakur and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And so it may expand and contract, but anyway, the ongoing unfolding of the dispensation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which I want to say, even as it contracts, it may very well be expanding in ways that we are not aware of. And by that I mean to say that we are very much at the beginning of a paradigm shift in philosophy in the world today. in terms of the world's philosophers, thinkers, and the scientific community, who have been for quite some time preoccupied with and have embraced materialism as a philosophy, the idea that there's nothing more to ourselves than physical ingredients. There is no self, no enduring self, no self independent of the body. Even the mind is thought to be just part of the brain. This very, very dominant philosophical perspective that filters down affects the world, even people who aren't thinking very much deeply about life, its purpose, its meaning. They are unknowingly become influenced by this kind of dominant perspective. And that is changing. And it's changing because it's impossible to reduce or explain consciousness as the workings of or an emergent property of the brain. It's not. And try as they have been for the last several decades, they're really coming up short in the scientific community. So there's a shift that's going on, and the shift is moving in the direction of a very core and basic tenet of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, which is a core tenet of all schools of Vedanta, that consciousness is the underlying reality. Now it will go in the direction of Mayavad. That would be more popular at first, but as it shifts and people come to more readily embrace a more idealistic or idealism, kind of perspective, that matter is an idea, matter comes out of consciousness and so forth. Then, then the groundwork that has been laid by our sampradaya, particularly by my Guru Maharaj, for other schools of Vedanta that are all theistic, and ultimately Chaitanya Vaishnavism, Gaudiya Vedanta, then it becomes a very interesting and charming time to discuss the nature of consciousness when it's already accepted that consciousness does not matter, and we are consciousness constituted. And consciousness is the underlying reality, and so forth. Some of the things that are harder sells, if you will, to the public when trying to explain Krishna consciousness to them, because it's so high theistically speaking, it would be much easier to sell, to market, to explain to people when it's understood and embraced that consciousness is an underlying reality. It's independent of the brain, it's independent of the mind, and so forth. Now, obviously, I'm speaking in a long and roundabout way to answer your question, but this is something that's going on, and we would look at it like this is all part of the dispensation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's very incredible what Prabhupada did with regard to Vedanta in Indology, for example, establishing. He is to be credited for, in our Paribar, coming from Bhakti Vinod, for this breaking of the monopoly of Advaita Vedanta on what Hinduism is all about. And again, showcasing other forms of Vedanta and so on. And that'll all surface and have more credibility and so forth, and more gain more interest as, again, the world moves in a direction is going toward, in which consciousness is accepted as the ultimate reality. So just an aside there, I think that even as it seems to contract sometimes, it's going on another level and will resurface. And the works that are of my Guru Maharaj and the Bhakti Vinod Paribar, what they've done to contribute, will be appreciated only that much more. So yes, so to look at all this unfolding of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, Gaudiya Vedanta in the world as an ongoing extension of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela, fair enough. And given that, in particular, we accept the representatives of the lineage to have the standing in that reality. And of course, I should mention also that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that he would remain in the world in the form of his name and Murti, the deity, in Chaitanya Bhagavat. So it continues on, but when we, so ourselves, how much are we members of the Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then? Well, as much as we are applying ourselves to the actual practices, corresponding lifestyle, and so forth, and as much as you're doing that, there won't be much question in your mind. You'll feel this is what I'm a member of. These are the things that I identify with. These things are real to me. They're exciting to me. To read Prabhupada was reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita on the boat, Jaladuta coming across. And this is the nectar, that he was living on. Well, physically speaking, he was quite ill, suffered a heart attack, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, the Leela is there to participate in, and as much as we apply ourselves in connection with Guru Parampara, then, as I've often said, there are three types of jivas. There's the Bada Jiva, who's eternally been conditioned since the time without beginning. There's the Nitya Mukta, the eternally liberated jiva. And then there's the Sadhaka, who will become a sadhana siddha through sadhana, through practice and grace, will become a siddha, a perfected devotee. But he's neither a siddha, neither a member of the material world. So where does he? Where is he? As much as he or she is applies themselves to the practice, the teaching, and the lifestyle, then yes, that's the beginning of their entry. How would we look at the life of Gopakumar, that's depicted in the Sanatana Goswami's Brihad Bhagavatamrita? He's doing practice, meditating on his mantra. He's experiencing different theistic conceptions, possibilities, and so forth. Charts a long course where he ends up, of course, in Goloka Vrindavan. So I don't think if you read that book, you'd think any part of his life was ordinary. You would think he is a member of the Leela in an extended sense. So it all depends on you. You have been given the opportunity. You've been given the mantra. You've been the key, the name, the mantra, the example to follow to enter into this world. So as much as you turn the key, realize that you have it, turn it, and then you will experience. And then the question will be answered. You'll know you're not part of the world. So then, if you were to attain perfection and go back, as you will, and write a story, then whoever read the story would think your life was quite extraordinary. The problem, of course, is that our life may not be as extraordinary as a Gopakumar because we don't apply ourselves. Although we've been given the keys, we keep them in the back pocket, or we left them in the drawer and went to work or something. So that's the only issue at hand. And it's beautiful to think about it in this way in relation to Gaura-Lila, because everything we do when we do our practices, we are following the example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates and our Guru Maharaj in the Guru Parampara. We're not putting on gopi dresses and doing Rasa Lila, and we're dressing up like gopas. We're dressing like sadhakas in a practitioner's body, a sadhaka deha, applying ourselves, and this will give rise to an internal identity in Krishna Lila. Meanwhile, the sadhaka identity that we're developing, that is permanent. For Gaura-Lila, look at we look at our Guru Parampara, we look at the perfected devotees, and we see them as members of Gaura-Lila. So if we're connected with them, then we're connected. It's up to us to apply ourselves. That's all. Hope that helps.
Thank you very much. So the next question is from Madhumangal Radhakanta, all the way from the Ozark Mountains of Arkansas. With all and everything being part and parcel of Krishna, and he as super soul resides in everything and everyone, is he and Balaram also by extension Jaya, Vijaya, Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, parenthesis Satya Yuga, Ravana and Kumbhakarna, Treta Yuga, Shishupal, Dantavakra in Dvapar Yuga? Will Jaya and Vijaya appear in Kali-yuga also? Have they already appeared? Will they be the demons killed by Kalki Avatar? Are the demons really associates and playmates of the Lord, just playing their roles in the Leela?
Well, Jaya Vijaya are two gatekeepers of Vaikuntha, and their story is given in the Bhagavatam, begins in the 3rd canto. It's picked up again in the 7th canto, and it stands out in the 7th canto with regard to the appearance of Nrsingadev, who was the one avatar of Krishna who gets the most attention, other than Krishna and Balaram themselves, in the Bhagavatam, and for good reason. But without going into that, it's not. Jiva Goswami makes the point that the same gatekeepers of Vaikuntha are not appearing in every yuga after yuga, and repeating this pastime. So it's a one-time affair for them. With regard to Kali-yuga, you ask about, it's thought that Jaya and Vijaya, who were liberated, being killed by ultimately by Krishna, right? They appeared and were slain by Varaha. Is it Varaha, Nrsinga? They appear in Ram-lila also, and then Krishna Lila, as you mentioned, as they appeared as Dantavakra and what's the other one? Shishupal. Then they were liberated. Then they went back to Godhead. I thought they're supposed to have three lives. That's 4. Anyway, they went back. But it's thought in Gaudiya Sampradaya that they reappeared in Kali-yuga as, what are their names in Navadvip?
Jagai and Madai.
Jagai and Madai, right? Who offended Nityananda Prabhu and were delivered there in kind of an encore appearance. That's the Gaudiya perspective on that. But otherwise, they're not, continuing to appear. And if the Leela of Nrsinga may play out differently in different time periods and so on and so forth. Now, there seemed to be another part to your question about all the demons, devotees, really, and they keep appearing again and again for Leela. No, I don't think we should look at it like that. That's not the case. There's you can refer to the Garga Samhita, for example, which describes the previous life of a number of the henchmen of Kamsa that were delivered by Krishna. Their previous lives are mentioned and so forth. They're not from Vaikuntha, falling down for the sake of a Leela and so on and so forth. There's a statement in the Gita that comes to mind in this regard, where Krishna says the certain demonic persons, they continue to conduct themselves in such demonic ways that life after life I place them in demonic wombs. Madhva Sampradaya takes that to mean that there are certain souls that always remain in the world, and they're demonic by nature, and they play that role. We look at it a little differently, although sometimes I see some people and I think they could be like that. But we look at it like, become demonic enough and you can take birth in Krishna-Lila, and Krishna will personally, you'll get his attention in that way. It's said that it's better to get Krishna's attention somehow or other. Obviously, favorably would be best, but if we don't get his attention, then we'd be better off getting his attention in a negative way, because that can only turn into a positive for us. So if someone's preoccupied in such a way that they become a big enough demon that get Krishna's attention, enter his Leela, the Prakat Leela, the manifest Leelas, is a mixture of the spiritual and the material. So there are material elements. There are people who are not pure who are in that Leela, which is not the case in Goloka and Aprakat Leela. And so that's a very special event for them. And so, yeah, they get demonic enough, take birth in Krishna Leela, and Krishna will deliver them. That's our idea, something like that. So I hope that helps. If I haven't fully answered your question, or it leaves other questions in mind, free to bring them up this time.
Okay, the next question is from Gaura-Gopal Das. He's a new person in our Sangha from Costa Rica. And he's asking, how can I get to Golok Vrindavan in Samadhi with attachment still lingering, separate interests and unwanted qualities, even if I give most of my time to bhakti-related activities, and not becoming neurotic or crazy with the 24-hour connection mentally and emotionally? And the second part of the question is, and what is that fifth dimension?
Well, how can you get to Goloka Vrindavan with material desires and distractions? That's like saying, I look out my window and there's a forest here, and beyond the forest, about 10 miles, there's an ocean. So how can I get from here to the ocean with all of those trees in the way? I'd have to cut through them. And that's what sadhana bhakti involves. How will you get, what you're really asking, in effect, is how can you get prema bhakti given your present, in this life, given your present distractions and so forth? Well, only by applying yourself to sadhana bhakti. And if you apply yourself fully, then you have the prospect of reaching the stage in which it won't matter to you, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains in his Shikshastakam when he says, Nadanam, Najanam, Nasundaram, Kavitam Va Jagadisha Kamaye, Mama Janmani Janmanishpare, Bhavatad Bhakti or Haitakita. So I've been asked this kind of similar question before. Can I go back to Godhead? Can I attain mukti, attain prema in one life? And the answer is, in one life you will. Which one? The one in which it doesn't matter to you anymore, because you've absorbed yourself so much in bhakti as a practice that, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, I don't care about becoming free from birth and death. I just want to do bhakti. So how can you get to that stage where you just want to do bhakti? Well, the more you apply yourself in bhakti, and take advantage of sadhu sangha and so forth. Of course, we all come from different backgrounds, so the course is going to be a little different for each of us. But I don't think that we should be preoccupied with attaining the ideal in this life. We should be preoccupied with. One person asked me, "Have you seen Krishna?" I said, "Well, I wasn't really looking." No, he said, "Have you seen Krishna?" I said, "Well, something like that." I've been asked that several times, and I've often answered, "Well, I wasn't looking for Krishna. I was looking for service for Krishna." And of course, you see him in service if you apply yourself there. So we want to be careful not to look for Krishna, not to look for mukti, not to look for attaining perfection, but look for applying ourselves. What really constitutes perfection that's at your disposal at the moment. Once I asked Prabhupada, if I just continue distributing your books, sometimes the devotees ask, I said, sometimes, if we just by distributing books, we'll become liberated. He said to me, "You are already liberated." That's what he told me. You are already liberated. Just continue with it. This is it takes us a little bit back to Abhay Krishna's question. You may not know it. You're not paying attention enough to realize what's happening to you. And as you Gopakumara, go back to him, he saw his body change. So we should apply ourselves to the perfection that is at hand, the opportunity that is at hand, to serve Krishna's perfection, to love Krishna, to you have your chanting that you do. Maybe you worship the deity, you read. All these things should be done with attention and purpose and heartfelt and so on and so forth. And they have great power. We just don't apply ourselves. So we just have to apply ourselves. You can't think, how can I get in the door without opening the door? You have to open the door. You can't. You have to open the door. But I think it's a little unhealthy to be preoccupied with. I probably would say that we should go back to Godhead now, and it was an impetus for us and driving force, so to speak, a sense of urgency. But I think you have to only as much as that type of an advocacy or that type of a preaching serves its purpose to get us fully engaged, which it did. At the time, would it be useful if it becomes a preoccupation that becomes unhealthy and gets in the way of just applying ourselves to the opportunity at hand, and then that's a problem. So I wouldn't worry about that. And what was the last part of the question?
It says. Well, part of it was like, how do you not become neurotic and crazy if you're 24-hour, connected to bhakti mentally and emotionally? And then the very last thing was, what is the fifth dimension? I guess beyond Turiya.
Okay. Well, if you do apply yourself 24 hours a day, you will become crazy. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went crazy, so it's desirable. But I mean, if you find that applying yourself in attempting to do so, that you're not understanding your own, recognizing your own limitations, and therefore artfully engaging in sadhana, then yeah, you could become neurotic and it'd be problematic. So you have to be able to tell your temperature. You have to, you want to, let's say you want to, central to any yoga practice, bhakti included, is to capture the mind. So that's a tall task, and it may be one that one's not up to in terms of just going straight at the mind. If you want to enter a house, well, there's more than one way. If you can't get in the front door, maybe you go in the back door. Maybe you can't get in the back door, maybe you go through the window. If you can't get through the window, maybe you go through the chimney. Somehow you find a way to get in, and you have to learn to work with the mind rather than against the mind. If you just try to wrestle directly with the mind, yeah, you may lose it. You may become a little neurotic and out of balance in terms of your psychological ego, and in a weaker position to actually practice. And if you have a strong psychological ego, you're in a better position to dismantle the metaphysical ego. So sadhana is an art, and we need a coach. We need guidance. We need to recognize our limitations, our level of our adhikar. If we don't understand the level of our eligibility, we try to apply ourselves in ways that are beyond our eligibility to practice, and so that is unbecoming, and it doesn't beget our practice. So, to be members of the Chaitanya Sampradaya, to be sadhakas, it's a glorious thing, and the fact that it's gradual, our progress and so forth, that shouldn't deter us or discourage us if we understand what a great course we've embarked upon. Just to be on the path at all is extraordinary and something to celebrate about, and so forth. We see our shortcomings in a healthy way. We are humbled by them, and to be humbled by our recognized shortcomings in a healthy way means that we are humbled by our shortcomings, recognize them, and we are thereby inspired to practice more, given that despite our shortcomings, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, the name has not left him. Nam nama kari bahudani disarva shaktista tarpita niyamita smananena kala. Etadishi tava kripa bhagavan namapi. Durdaivam idisham mihajani nanuraga. Wow, he's still there. The beads have not walked off on me. They're still there, right? The name stays with us. Even though we have, as Mahaprabhu says, I have distractions and I have no attraction, still the name is staying with me. So we are humbled by our shortcomings, and in light of them, the fact that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or the holy name is still, that dispensation is still making itself available to us. So again, we're inspired. So this is an art, and I guess a lot of devotees don't understand, can't be comfortable with where they're at, and the fact that they can't apply themselves to certain practices at this time. If they apply themselves to what they can practice at this time sincerely, then they'll feel enthused. We have to be very careful. It's a very fine line, because you can't. I'm not saying, well, here are my shortcomings. This is all I can do. If I could do more later on, well, I guess I'll know about it or something like that. So you can't use this as an excuse to not practice, just to be slack and so forth, but to be comfortable with the fact that I'm on this level. I'm to be accepted at some level. One of Prabhupada's godbrothers, Sridhar Maharaj once said something. And it's like he's an example of a Kanishta Adhikari. And when that devotee heard that, he thought, "Oh, Sridhar Maharaj has considered me a Kanishta Adhikari. Oh, how fortunate I am! He's recognized that I have adhikar for bhakti." He was inspired. So again, if you understand that path, to be anywhere on it is auspicious. We're not envious of those that are further along. We're happy for them and seek their association. In a healthy way, we lament our own position, healthy in the sense that, well, it's a healthy way that we become inspired to practice on the level that we can. This is it's an art. It's just sadhana. It's like we're working to attain perfection. So, and working with the mind instead of against the mind. You got to gradually harness it and so forth. So, otherwise, the fifth dimension. They said that there are 4 dimensions of consciousness: Jagrata, the waking state; Swapna, dream state, when the physical world influence is diminished and the mental influence over consciousness is prominent. Then there's deep sleep, when even the mind turns off. And then there's the 4th. It's just called the 4th. What can you say about it? It's beyond the waking state, beyond the dreaming state, beyond deep sleep, the 4th. Of course, that's Mukti. This is Vaikuntha. There is something you can say about it from the Vaishnava point of view. But the 5th dimension, if you will, that is mentioned in Gopal Tapani, Turiyatita Gopala. So the 5th dimension means beyond Vaikuntha, Goloka. And there you can hear the 5th note of Krishna's flute, which is prominent. Another question?
Pretty much, I had a short follow-up. That mental image of somebody going into the house of bhakti through the chimney is really humorous for me. It's like my cartoonist mind immediately gets activated. But I was just wondering if you could give like an actual practical example of what that could mean in like a sadhaka slide. What does it mean to, go in an unconventional route, basically?
Well, I don't necessarily mean in an unconventional route. I just mean that somehow or other, Rupa Goswami makes a statement, somehow or other, you fix your mind on Krishna. Well, so if you want to use it, and I guess the analogy does, brings up the image of an unconventional route. The Bhagavatam says in the 7th canto that by enmity, by anger, by relationship, like by karma, somehow or other. Examples are there: Kamsa, Shishupal, enmity, Kamsa, fear. They fix their minds on Krishna. So I was saying earlier, better to fix your mind on Krishna in a negative way. Better in a positive way, but a negative way, better than not at all. So Bhagavatam says that Shishupal achieved perfection by fixing his mind in enmity upon Krishna. The gopis by lust, or kama, appears to be lust, somehow or other. So I think in particular, like Shishupal comes a very unconventional route. Now that's not something for a sadhaka to do, but as far as sadhakas go, then you have to you find a way. Again, I'm just talking about the fact that you need to work with the mind. The mind, you want to take a vacation, you want to go relax somewhere, travel. So travel to the Dham. You're not supposed to go there to relax and vacation, but might as well go there and relax and vacation there than somewhere else. And certainly you'll be reminded of your purpose, ultimate purpose, and so on and so forth. Bhakti is very broad in a sense, very generous. I mean, you could think about Krishna, you could pray to Krishna, you could chant about Krishna, you can just hear about Krishna, you can eat food offered to Krishna, you can pay respect. There's so many ways that you can apply yourself. If you're having trouble in one way, Hmm? If you're chanting japa and you can't follow, put down the beats, pick up the kartals. Chant like that for half an hour, somehow or other. That's kind of the spirit of what I'm talking about. I'd like to see that cartoon though.
Yeah, I'll start working on it.
Okay.
Let's see. Next question is from Gayatri.
Hi, Krishna.
Good
So,
morning.
good morning. My question is about the phrase and/or title eternal spiritual mastery. I don't understand what that looks like, since we haven't always been intentionally applying ourselves to the practice. So what does it mean by eternal spiritual master? Have we always had one guru and in different shapes? Like I just can't wrap my head around this. If you can please explain.
One thing about eternal, when we say that bhakti is eternal, it doesn't mean it doesn't have a beginning in your life. Eternality in Gaudiya Vaishnavism is very peculiar, because even in the Lila, new things are happening. Krishna is seen as new at every moment. So it's not a static kind of eternity. New people are showing up. There's room for Krishna is celebrating his own nature and so forth. And as he celebrates it through another devotee who has become perfect, then other sides of Krishna that are there always are now coming out. It's a very dynamic type of eternity, not a static idea of eternity. I've written a little bit about this in my forthcoming book. It's a very interesting subject. So, but the idea of the eternal, that the guru is eternal, there's a number of ways to think about that. I mentioned this the other week or so, a couple weeks back perhaps, but one of the ways in which we use the term eternal spiritual master is to differentiate ourselves from Advaita Vedanta, where the guru is an aid that's done away with when you've accomplished what the aid's purpose was. And what to speak of Krishna, even Bhagwan is done away with. You might worship the deity to get beyond the deity, become the deity, and so forth. So we're unlike that. There, the deity is provisional. There, the guru is provisional. They're part of the Vyavaharic, empiric realm, and in the Paramarthic, they're not there. So it's not like that. So in one sense, if over different lifetimes you've had different gurus, let's say, they're all going to be there. So who has ever been your guru, in the real sense of the term, in different lifetimes, they're all going to be there. That's one way to look at it. And another way to look at it, of course, is the guru is Krishna. The guru is a representative of Krishna. So Krishna is there. And what you're getting through the guru is what Krishna's like, and as you come to realize that fully. Of course, then the guru is also there as a devotee. So we know that the guru represents Krishna, but he's also has a service to Krishna. So then the more we churn this idea of the eternal guru, then the guru, there will be or the, let's say, how would say, so the guru, we have a relationship with a guru, with a Vaishnava who's a guru, in the spiritual world, in his group, something like that. So that's a more refined way of looking at that. Or you take, and I should mention, because, well, in our group we have the influence of Madhurya Rasa through Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj, and Sakya Rasa through Prabhupada and so forth. So someone might think, well, I want Guru Maharaj to be, I want to be in his group, but he likes the Sakya Rasa. I have affinity for Madhurya Rasa, so do I have to get a Madhurya Rasa guru, or am I going to be in his group? And of course, the answer to that is no. That once that was, some people were promoting that. Prabhupada and Sakya Rasa, if you want Madhurya Rasa, you have to go here or there. And I presented that to Puri Maharaj to see what he said. I didn't agree with it, and he chuckled. He said, Prabhupada, you have a guru in Sakya Rasa, then you think you've got a problem, and then you've got a problem. He can arrange everything and so forth. And a great example of that is there in our Sampradaya, that Shyamananda Prabhu was a disciple of Hridaya Chaitanya, who was a disciple of Gaura-Das Pandit, who was incarnation of Subal in Gaura-Lila. So his disciple was Hridaya Chaitanya, and Hridaya Chaitanya initiated devotee who became known as Shyamananda. But Shyamananda was attracted, and this is a Sakya Rasa lineage. Subal in Sakya Rasa, Hridaya Chaitanya was in Sakya Rasa, but Shyamananda became attracted to Madhurya Rasa. But Hridaya Chaitanya remained his eternal guru in the Leela as well. So these two, of course, are very compatible. No problem there. There's a nice verse from Rupa Goswami, and Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says, this verse, Rupa Manjari is speaking to inspire another young gopi, who's a sadhana siddha, entering the Leela, to have regard for Subal. It's a very famous verse. So anyway, just as a small point here, with regard to this more refined idea of the eternal guru, right? That now we asked Sridhar Maharaj about this after Prabhupada left, right? He gave the broad answer. Guru is representative of Krishna, so many different packages that will appear in and so forth. But then he could see that we wanted a little bit something more, and so he said, but if your guru is in Goloka, and it said the guru keeps coming back for the disciple, does he come back at Pushpa? I said, no, he doesn't have to come back like that. Krishna can send someone else. But then he said that this is what he said. He said, but if you're praying to the guru that you want him to come back, and he will go to Krishna and say, they want me, they're calling me, they're praying that I would come back in the next life to deliver them. And Krishna said, no, I could send somebody else. He says, no, they want me. And Krishna said, all right, then I'll send you, something like that. So it's whatever you want, right? If you want your guru to be your eternal guru in the fullest sense of the term that I'm speaking of, then that's who will be your guru in the fullest sense of the term. Does that help?
Yes, but does that mean that we're taking this this person and away from Golok Vrindavan if we're praying to have that guru.
Never leaves.
No?
Never leaves. No, he'll never leave. He'll expand himself. Be in two places at the same time.
Wonderful.
No problem.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay,
All
the
right. Go ahead.
last question is from Kishore Krishna from Madhuban.
Pranam Gomaj. Good morning.
Good morning.
Question, I'm just finding it. Okay. So there's a strong emphasis in society today to not care what others think about us. I understand there is an unhealthy way to care too much what others think about us, but isn't the issue more whose thoughts we care about and why? It seems there is a sacred way to care deeply about what Guru, Krishna, and everything connected to them think about us. I imagine the Vrajbasis must be constantly wondering how Krishna experiences them. So I've just been reflecting on this idea of caring what others think about us and wondering if you could share your thoughts on it.
Well, I'm going to answer very briefly because we're really out of time. But I mean, if I understand your question properly, I think that not a healthy way of not caring what other people think about us. There's a healthy way to do this, and there's an unhealthy way. I mean, a healthy way for us to not care what other people think about us is to only care what our guru thinks about us. That we should care about. What Guru and Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu think about us, that's important. And whatever anybody else thinks, it really doesn't matter. Who are they? What are they? A passing bubble on the ocean, of time. We're not here to please anyone other than our Guru and Krishna. We're not here to displease other people either, but and I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. But there are times when they may be mutually exclusive. When pleasing our guru is going to displease, maybe our parents because they don't want us to go to his ashram for a visit or something. I don't, whatever. Then you have to make the right choice. But largely, pleasing the Guru and Krishna should make you a very pleasing person. That's part of sadhana bhakti. Shubhada, one becomes auspicious and likable and so forth. Of course, it's somewhat relative because there's always going to be somebody that doesn't like you, doesn't care about what you do. But we don't need to care about anything else. I don't. If my guru is pleased, then that's who I am. So, in a healthy way, from a spiritual point of view, I don't worry about what the world thinks. And obviously, many of the things that we embrace, the ideas and so forth, are not popular with the materialists and so on and so forth. We don't care for that. So I don't know if I'm answering your question entirely, but that's what comes to mind. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. I'll keep reflecting on it too. Maybe something more will come.
It also goes with regard to the nowadays. There's more there's more exposure to different sanghas and so forth, and every sangha has a little bit of a different way of doing things and thinking about things. Gurudev said this, my Gurudev said that, looked at it different, all with regard to details and so on and so forth, or nuances on the philosophy. So I said, that's not the Siddhanta. So I said, well, this is, we say it like this over here. There are some, differences like this. And we get, I say nowadays, because when I was young and in Prabhupada's mission, there was no other mission. His mission was so, was like the sun, and blinding out any other light on the planet, even if there was any. So there was no other way to think about it. In his absence, other lights became prominent at different times and so forth. So you can see they think about it differently and look at a verse slightly differently, different nuance, emphasis here and there, and so on and so forth. There's an advantage to that, and there's a disadvantage to that as well, to that kind of exposure. And it's an advantage if you're strong enough, healthy enough to be able to digest the differences and understand the relativity of them, and incorporate some of them perhaps into your own being in a healthy way without departing from your own party bar and so forth. But I think that it's healthy and important also to think that we think like this, and we don't think there's a problem with that because our guru is such and such and so on, and this is where our conviction lies. And you may think like that, and that's okay, but not to be bothered by that. I'm not going to be intimidated by what some other sector of Gaudiya Vaishnavism thinks. Just a smaller point, I guess, that might come up in relation to your question. Of course, we can have two gurus too. That's also a possibility. And I have some disciples who were given Harinam by someone else, and I gave them second initiation, or even vice versa, in a couple of cases. So that'd be a little different. They'll hear a couple different ways, but then they have to think for themselves about different points. But by and large, anyway, I think, yeah, we don't care what other people think. We care what our Guru Parampara thinks, what our Bhakti Vinod Paribar thinks, what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says. All right.
Yeah, could I just ask one? Should we try, is part of sadhana trying to see ourselves through the eyes of Guru and Krishna? Should we see ourselves that way, think of ourselves in that way?
Yeah, that would be good. Very good. Looks peaceful there at Madhavan.
It is, yeah. We got a couple early rains, so things are quite green, but still nice and dry.
Wow. All right, well, nice to talk with all of you. And next week I'll be in Chile, so I don't think I'll be in touch. And next week after that, I'll be in Brazil, so maybe a couple of weeks before we get back together again. But I look forward to my visit. I look forward to coming back. I look forward to getting together with you, and so on. Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jaya. Gaur Premanande. Haribo.
Srila Guru Maharaj Ki Jaya. So yeah, there'll be a couple weeks that we won't have the Sunday call, and we won't be streaming the talks from Chile or Brazil either. And the other big news is that we will have a new number for the Zoom ID starting from next week, and the number is Guru Maharaj's birthday and then 3 ones. So it's 3/12/1949 and the password's going to stay the same, but it's good if you guys write that down so you don't end up here when the channel is not there anymore in 2 weeks. And let's see, I will still send out a newsletter thing about it. So you can either write it down now or just look for that email in the newsletter. And the last thing is that we are going to have next Thursday, Madan Mohan is going to be talking on the Prem Bhakti Chandrika, the second song that deals with anarthas. And that talk is going to that's actually going to be, that's still going to be this month. So that's going to be on this channel. But then the week after that, we're going to be transferred on the other channel. So just keep that in mind. And I think that's it for now. I hope you guys have a good week, and let's catch up in a couple of weeks. Haribo.